What is going on, my YouTube friends? So today we are here at episode 4 of the video series on how to customize this motorcycle seat. This series, this episode, we're going to be doing sewing. So we're actually going to sew this seat cover together. The previous episode, we actually cut it out and patterned it. Now we're going to sew it. So let's get going. So you can see we have a lot of pieces here. So what seems to start off as just a seat ends up with quite a few pieces, and you'll see why I try to keep everything together. One thing unrelated, well, related to the previous video, I forgot to show in it, and I want to just kind of show here. When you're patterning it, reverse back to the patterning video, a lot of times in the motorcycles, you'll see, especially around where your inner legs, the vinyl gets stretched out, and then it's not exactly flat. So when you go to put it flat on to pattern it, if you see this, when it relaxes like that. When you push it down, now it turns this way, right? So that's one of the hard parts about using an existing pattern and repatterning off of that. And a lot of times you'll see someone get confused, and what they'll do is they'll put this seat here and then they'll flatten this out, move this all the way to this way, and then come back here and flatten this one out and move this to this way. And now basically you took this area and shrunk it. Then when you go to put this on, it's going to not fit. So it's really important to lay these out, see exactly how they go, keep it relaxed, and then make sure your new piece goes on it. And then I know that this one's supposed to be symmetrical, so I always flip them over and make sure that they're symmetrical, because if you do that, odds are you're in a good spot. So now we're going to go sew. Now this is where you see we have our little alignment V's, which normally we'll have a ton of them, but like I have said before, I don't really, on motorcycle seats, like to do that. I always like to start in the center and work my way out, so it's a little different. Some people ask what sewing machines we use, and I despise our sewing machines, and it's kind of like, to me, I look at it as marrying the wrong person and then being stuck with them for a long time. So, not that I was, but I did with the sewing machines. I gotta stop that. Luckily, my wife doesn't watch any of our videos. I always wanted to get a Conso 206 RB, right? And then I went to go get one, and I needed a machine, and the guy didn't have it, and I always try to buy local, because it seems like a pain to buy a sewing machine and have it shipped. Well, it did back in the day. Now shipping's a lot easier. So when I went there, he did not have the 206 RB. He only had the 205 RB. So I bought that machine and used that for a long time, and it held up very well. When I say a long time, probably almost 18 years or something. Then it was tired and old and broke, and it was like, I don't know if it was like Christmas Eve or New Year's. It was like a really weird time. So I called up our sewing machine guy, and of course, all he had was a 205 RB1. And I already had the machine. So I already had the machine, and now I'm buying the same machine I didn't want. I wanted the 206 RB. So finally I get that machine, and then we had a problem with it. It wasn't working right. We needed another machine, and I wanted the 206 RB. And then I went and grabbed this one, which is not a 206 RB. It is a P1255 RB. And the guy who sold it to me told me it was a better machine than a 206 RB. And I don't really know, even though we sew every day, I don't know shit about sewing machines. I like to make stuff and not work on sewing machines. So I went by his advice and bought that machine, and we've had that one now for probably 3 or 4 years, and this one, I think, for 5 years or something like that. So they're good machines. They hold up. It's just not the ones that I wanted. We did have a lot of problems with both the machines, and I did have to reach out to the guy we bought them from, who didn't do anything about it, which kind of irritated me. And then we also reached out to the manufacturer. He had told me to email him, so I emailed him. But it's kind of a process. I'd have to take a machine and be down, bring it to New York. We're in Connecticut, so it's an hour-and-a-half drive or whatever. Drop it off or ship it to him. So we really would need to buy another machine, because we can't be down on a machine. So now I'm just dealing with what's broken on these two machines. Hopefully, you, the viewers, are going to buy so much products that we could buy new machines. If you do want to try the machine, I do highly recommend the 206 RB. And if you were to go click on the link, we have a link in the description, and you can go and purchase the machines. It goes right to Amazon. They have some really good prices. So anyways, if you like what we're doing, you can buy one of those. I will be in the future probably not buying another console. We're going to be buying some other machines, and you can kind of watch us do that. So let's get to sewing, what this video is about. I actually hate this. I got to modify this. Hold on. Okay, before I sewed this, I actually had to go and make some marks. I hate when people think too much. So Harley did this thing where instead of just cutting this out, sewing it on, I guess it saves a step in that, but now you have to have everything cut and then kind of, it's harder to follow this edge around. So I just went and marked it on here so I could just follow this edge around, and that's what we're going to do. Okay, so one of the common things people do when they're sewing and going around corners and coming to an end is they follow this line off and think that that's important. What's always important is you want your pattern right so it's not off, but you want to make sure that this is where the two pieces meet is important. So this pattern was actually off a little bit, but you can see a lot of times on a pattern, sometimes they get snipped or don't get snipped and it's long. And if you were to actually follow, like put this edge to that edge and sew to it, when you open it up, your pattern is going to be off. So now you got it right on the money. So always pay attention to where your seam allowance is, and you want your seams on your corners to match, if that just made any sense. Okay, so now while we're here, I'm going to put our top stitch on it. And so when you're doing top stitches, you could do it this way. So you could have the Savage going that way or this way. I prefer this way because then you put your top stitch here and the seams underneath it. If you did it this way, you have your stitch here, and I don't know, I just think it looks stupid. And then it's more of an opportunity for moisture to just sit on there. So we're kind of like sealing it, which also brings us, I'll talk in where I'd probably screw up if I do. What brings us to the hardest part when you're sewing, going from patterning to sewing, is knowing which panels to put to the next. I don't have time right now to go in deep depth of explaining that, but we will in a future video. But it's very challenging when you first start off sewing to know which piece gets sewn to the next. And many times people will sew the wrong pieces together. And if it's just a butt seam, that's fine because you can just cut the threads and redo it. But if you do like I'm doing here, and you put a top stitch in it, and then you mess up, basically the panels are ruined, and you have to start from scratch. When I say they're ruined, it's because once you do a top stitch, like we're doing here, if you come around and sew this, so now you have our original butt seam, we have our top stitch that are sewn together. If I have to cut this out with a razor blade and then re-sew it, you're going to have every single needle hole or needle go through each of the original holes to make sure that it's exact. Otherwise, you'll see holes in it. If you don't do that, what you end up doing is trimming the seat. And every time you do that, you're making the pattern smaller. So if you take this panel off and then trim it back here, now it's smaller and it's obviously not going to fit. A lot of people don't realize how critical the dimensions have to be to make things right. So we got that one there. Now we're going to do this one next. We'll just do this while I got you over here. Bada boom, bada bing, bada bada bum. So this is here. Let's try this out. So now we're going to sew the brown to the black. And I will tell you, this is the wrong way to do it. I just prefer to do it this way. You're supposed to follow your V's and go all the way around. I just find on motorcycle seats, a lot of times, there's a lot of stretching and pulling on them. And if you start from the center and work your way out, you usually could line everything up very well right out of the gate. Whereas if you start with your V's, vinyls, like a lot of times like cars, you'll do a bigger panel and the material actually, which we should have went over that in our patterning video, but the material actually has a stretch to it. Some materials one way, two way, three way, four way. So when you pull the material, it stretches. So this stretches this way, but not this way. So when you're actually sewing, you're going through many different angles of stretching, and it's very easy to start here, and by the time you get all the way around, be way off. So I just did this, and we'll see if it works. If it works, I'm right. If I'm not, so, and I also, this is what's weird about it. So by doing it the wrong way, I've taught myself, so I'll put this stitch here. And obviously if this was like a really high dollar car seat or high dollar motorcycle seat, I wouldn't even take this chance. I would actually go around and, well, I won't say motorcycle seat because I do it the same way, but you have to make sure that your stitching is really close to this. And then when you come across this one, you start your new stitch, which I'll show you. I know that's confusing and I sound like an idiot, but here we go. So we got, if I stitched too far in and this was a French seam, we'd be screwed because we wouldn't be able to spread the salvage apart and actually make the French seam look good. So I'm just kind of going up to the hole, and you know, people who do this for a living are probably like, this guy's a moron, because why would you go through all that trouble? But this is the way I do it. So now I went there, and we'll show you. I'm going to follow this. So as you're sewing, you want this top edge and bottom edge to go there, which when you're sewing material to material, it's a lot easier. If you're doing laminated material with like sew foam or something like that, it's a little bit more challenging. See, talking, I just screwed up. I went about a 1/16 of an inch off. So we're going to keep that there, right? And then same thing. We want to make sure we end right on, which we did. And so you can see by doing it the wrong way, we just did it the right way. So now I'm going to show you why it's the wrong way. So what happens is when you pull your material, which most people don't look at this, you can see, you can count the threads or see the stitching exactly where it is, everywhere you go. And sometimes if you get to the middle where you do it, if you did it wrong, you'd actually have a double there, but we did it right, so there's not a double. So visually, you just don't see it. It's an extra process that I have to do, but I like it that way. So now I'm going to do a top stitch on this. I'm going to do black on the brown. I think it will look better. So when sewing, you know, I mean, we're teaching sewing, but we're teaching them on a broken machine. So this machine, you'll see me doing stupid stuff, and I'll show you why. A lot of times with the smaller machine, well, any machine, you have to hold your thread semi-tight, because if you don't, it actually just sucks in and then binds up the machine. And that's one of the challenges a lot of people face when they first start sewing, is being able to go forward and backwards, hold the thread, and you know, it seems like a lot, and then eventually it just becomes common knowledge and you just do it. I'm going slow on this one. We don't want to mess up. We want to get it done right the first time, not the 5th time. One thing that was cool is this has a badge on it and he wants to keep it. Pain in the ass. So we're going to go over and I'm going to show you why it's pain in the ass, because Harley changed how they mount their badges, and what they end up doing is putting blind rivets on here that are so tiny. It's cool. It's more like jewelry than anything else, but we're going to have to figure out a way to get that on there and do that. So now you can see here, this panel is sewn, all 3, and let's go test it out. Okay, so now we can just put this panel exactly where it goes and see how it's going to be. This is the front piece. So this goes like that, right? So you can see, even though this had a really wacky shape, why it had a wacky shape, because all this has to be stretched and go around all these curves. So there's a lot to it. And then this little stupid flap thing that they said that we did, this just literally tucks down and that pulls it down so it gets it nice and tight. I usually don't, well, we'll go over that when we do our install video. I actually ran over some thread, so I want to clean that out there. But this looks good, so now we can move to the next step. And actually, if you look, this is where everybody gets confused. It gets very confusing for some. So now we got these 3 pieces sewn, which I always kind of do that. I usually do this, this, and this, 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 and this, get them together, and then put them together, which is the right way to do it. So now we need to put this piece onto this piece, right? So this here, I just want to double check, because this has a backrest slot. So we want to make sure that this does go to this first, because we have to put this on there afterwards. And Harley actually did a top stitch on both sides, so we're going to do that right now. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're like, I hope he messes up so we can see the wrong way to do it and how you fix it. Because it's kind of like watching NASCAR, where even though you love the sport, you're always waiting for a crash for some reason. And we all crash and burn at some time. Okay, so here's this piece here. Okay, same thing. I'm going to start from the center, work my way out, which is the wrong way to do. Do as I say, not as I do. Buzz around it. All right, so I just ran out of bobbin thread, and I'll show you how I wind the bobbin. I know a lot of people buy the pre-done bobbins and throw them in there. I personally don't like them. I like to use the exact same thread that I'm using. On this machine, you put your empty bobbin in there, and usually I have a different thread in there, but we're using the same one. So we're just gonna go through this, around this. And there's a lot to learn with this. If you think a 10-minute video is gonna teach you how to do this for a living, you're on crack. We'll go through each stage as we do seats and teach you different things. So now I just wrap this around a bunch of times, right? Bada boom. Stick this back through the hole, pull it through. And now, another thing broken on this machine, I have to actually hold the walking foot up as I do it, because some idiot that worked here broke the back of it. I don't even know how you do that. So just spin it until it snaps. I always make sure it's pushed in. Let it go. A lot of times I'll have 2 spools on here and I'll just wind it as I go, but we haven't been doing a lot of sewing lately. So now pull the bobbin off, cut it, put it back into the bobbin casing, pull it through, pull it up, hook it around there, pull it, make sure it has a little tension on there. Then you got to open this little flapper. This is a side mount machine. Our other one is a top load machine. So now we just put that in. There's a little hole, which one day I'll show you, which I actually showed people in other videos, but there's a little rod. You just want to hold that thing in, slide it in, and then it snaps into place. And then we're just going to take our thread, and this thread is frayed a little bit, so I'm going to cut it. We're going to go through the top hole here, through this little doohickey here, through here into this little stuff that keeps it from bouncing around, little felt stuff. All it does is keep the thread from like backing up and bouncing around. Pull through that hole, and then we're going to go through the actual needle eye. See if I can see it. Getting old. This is nice. It's actually funny because I'm using a regular size thread now. Our heavy thread is actually a lot harder to do. So now, holding pressure on here, I'm going to push the clutch in a little bit. So I just push the pedal just a little bit, not to engage it, but to release it. Spin this until the thread comes up. Thread came up, bada boom. Cut my finger off. Now we're going to take this, pull this out, and we have not a thread there. So I screwed up. Too much talking, not enough doing. So I just did it again. We'll pretend that didn't happen. So that's there, bada boom, bada boom, bada boom. Now we're gonna do our top stitch here. Well, I got you here after showing you that tutorial. We'll jump onto here. So this is the problem with this machine too. So the guy that was working here that broke the back, actually somehow forcing the material, there's like supposed to be a hole here. He broke the side of it, and so now the thread just gets sucked in the machine. So when I talked to the guy I bought it from, he says he doesn't have this plate and ignores me. And so then I called Conso, and Conso said that we'd have to send it to them because nobody knows what this plate is. So it's kind of a shit fest. So I'm just gonna keep using it, buy a new machine, and then see what happens. So when you start off, you'll see me always hitting this lever. You'll start stitching, you'll get like 2 stitches forward, you push this down, it goes backwards. They say it ties a knot. Lock off your thread, and then you can take your thread now once it's tied off if you want to. You can cut it now, you cut it later, you cut it next week, boom, done, gone. So now we're just going to go through and do our top stitch. So when you're doing top stitches, which I'm going to buy some of the things, they have actually guides that you could do that run down so you could make sure your stuff's perfect. I never had that stuff. I could never afford all these little cool gadgets that everybody has now. So I would just come up with tricks where I actually hold the material and I could see the light shining and I follow that, which sounds ridiculous. It's almost like what the heck just happened there? You see that? I forgot to tie the string back off. That just happened live on. I wound the bobbin, but then I never put the thread through because I'm so used to just having 2 things. So actually, you're going to see me screw up and fix it, right? Here, we're not going to hide anything. So what I ended up doing is I normally have a bobbin going, so I forgot that I have to actually put the thread back through the machine. So now we're going to thread this whole machine from scratch. Here we go. So that was a little bit of a geriatric moment, so forgive me. So now we're going to go through here. We're going to go through here. We're going to go through here. Go down through here. And go around here. Pull it up till it clicks through there. We're going to go up through here. I'm going to try to get my hand out of there so you can see what we're doing here. Through here. And then through here. Oop. Oop, and not around there. Now we're just going to go get the free. Oh, look at, I'm more worried about doing the videos than I am paying attention to what the hell I'm doing here. I forgot this goes around here. I almost did it. Well, it would have been funny because if I didn't do that, you would have known it. No, I would have known it. Okay, so that goes there. All right. Bada boom, bada bing, bada boom, bada bing. And then we're going to go down here through this eye again. So I got to make this perfect because I know the owner of this seat watches our videos and he's going to be like, oh, you just screwed up my seat. So if I had went through and done this dumb thing and I had went through the whole stitch and got through the whole piece, I would have just redone the seat. But because we don't have to, we're just going to pull this out. So you can see what happened. It snapped there. I could, actually, let's just do that. We'll just pull this through, bada boom, right? Now, I'm going to show you the other way. We're just going to do it this way. So I could have just the way it broke, you could pull this through, tie it off, and then restart and go through it. But I'm not going to have a knot there. We're just going to pull this out and start over. This way I could show you going through the original bullet holes, what I talk about. I always say going through the original bullet holes, because your sewing machine, every time the needle comes down, puts a hole in it, right? And the last thing you want to do is have a new seat done or bolstered and have a hole in it. So we have to make sure that when we stitch this now, we go through every single hole exactly where it was. If it was if I had done the whole seat and we're going around the whole seat, it'd be very tedious. It'd probably take you too long to do. And then that's when you just redo the patterns and make a new seat. So let's do this. Okay, so we're going to start here now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start this off, lock it off again. Bada boom, bada bing. And now I got to make sure I go in every hole. Always in the hole. You always stick it in the hole. So 1, right? 2, 3, 4. I'll stop counting. I'll probably have to fast forward over this. This is why it's tedious. Actually, we won't fast forward. This is why it's tedious. And this is why you don't like screwing up. So we're going through every single original hole. And then, now we did it. We just redid it. Looks perfect. We didn't miss it. You can look at it. Well, you can't look at it. You're right. I'll show you afterwards. And now we're just going to go through and do our top stitch. Bada boom, bada boom. I do like this brown to the black contrast. It looks nice. Okay, we got the top stitch done, and then you can see here, let me just make sure before I tell you it looks good, I'm gonna inspect it. We went through every single hole and then just continued, and we don't have any buildup on the back, so we're good. So now I'm just gonna put this piece, and this is the actual piece that goes down inside the backrest slot. So on this specific model, I forgot to cut a V out, so we're gonna do it the old-fashioned way, just a razor blade, bada boom. Bada boom. See that? You don't need technology. Line up my center marks. Make sure this walks right off to the edge of the seat. Right, that one goes there. That one goes there. Okay. Now we're going to keep going. One thing you really want to make sure, when you're sewing, you don't want to tug on the material. If you're having to stretch the material to line up your alignment marks, what you're doing is putting pressure on one side and not the other side, so you're guaranteed to have a shitload of puckers. And I'll show you what a pucker is one of these days. We'll let Lewis sew, because I know he's going to pucker it up. Lewis and Rick are working behind me, so every time I look away, it's not because I'm losing my mind, just looking off into space. I already lost that years ago. When we came to the edge here, you can see, when I talk about your seam allowance and your salvage, it is, your stitch comes here, right? I don't know how to explain this. Your stitch comes and meets your stitch here. So if you have, well, actually that's easy. I don't know why I can't explain this, but, so you got a seam allowance here, 3/8 of an inch, right? That comes, imagine there's a line that crosses here, and then you have your seam allowance on this side. You want both seam allowances, you want your stitching to intersect on that exact seam allowance. So if you pull your material down too much and your stitching's off, when you turn it inside out, it's not going to line up. You see how it kind of lines up nice here? Even though that little devious, sneaky little tabs there. Afterwards, we're just going to snip it off. Oh, I'm using the wrong scissors, but. And then you have, bada boom, a nice transition. So this one also gets a top stitch. I'm going to put the black on the black, black on black. And then once this is done, oh, actually we're going to put the front, we have 2 more pieces to do on the front, or 1 more. We got to do that one with the top stitch, and then we're going to do the same thing to the back of the seat. And then we'll put the back to the front, and then we'll put the bottom on, and then we'll put the cover on. Yep. And then someone can get their seat and they can go put it on the bike and go for a ride and get the funnest part. The best part is getting your seat on your stinking bike so you can ride it. And there's nothing better than having a comfortable seat. So let me grab those other pieces, and then actually I'll show you, and then we'll show you, and we'll show you, because I always run back and forth a lot and test fit everything. Okay, so I don't need this anymore. I don't need this anymore. I don't need this anymore. So if you look here, so far what we did, we just did that. That's sewn on. We don't need that anymore. This flap gets tucked in there. We'll pretend. And then this comes around here. This comes around here. This does this little thing. And then this right here is what gets tucked down inside the back wrist slot and gets stapled in the backside. So you could test fit it all you want. I'm actually not test fitting a lot. I'm test fitting it, but I'm not actually going crazy because I know it's going to fit. I've done a couple of these things. And if it doesn't fit, then I just put my shoe in my mouth, foot in my mouth. So now we got to put this on here. And this is where labeling does come important. And I didn't label, so I'm an idiot on these little guys here, because this is the thing that always bites people in the tail. When you just put a center point on there, center and center, you don't really know if it goes this way or this way, and you'll sew it on. And what will happen is if you sew this on backwards, it'll pucker in a weird way. And then the seat looks stupid. So this one here goes like so. Well, actually, you know, I did label it actually, so I'm not as dumb as I thought I was. Pretty stinking close though. I label it on the pattern, the original pattern, but I didn't label it on my pattern. So we're just going to go through and do that. And then I also wrote it on here, but I must have grabbed it with my finger. Usually the space pens work really good and don't rub off. Depends if you got oily hands, I guess. And then I need that. Where is that piece? What's funny is I had to shut the camera off because I was swearing and yelling, wondering where the hell the piece was, laughing, saying how I said to keep everything together so it doesn't get lost, and I forgot because of this stupid badge. I brought this downstairs and put it on the workbench. But I needed it because I labeled it. I wanted to make sure that this piece goes in the right direction. So now by labeling it, I know that these 3 lines go to the front here, so I don't have to question it. And now I can sew this to this, put a top stitch on it, and then we're going to do the back. So when you, actually I should say that too before we run over there. When you're taking it apart, you always look at the seat and you can see where your top stitches are if you're duplicating those, to make sure that you put them back in the same direction. What's funny is, I was just telling Rick and Lewis, the guy who owns the seat, watches us, watches our videos, and he must have the notifications on because he was notified that the video came out, which was how to pattern his seat. And what was funny is we had some serious technical issues with our uploading of the video. Well, it actually wasn't even the uploading. It was just the rendering. It kept freezing and we'd only upload the first like 50 seconds of it. So it was just kind of funny. So maybe you had to be here, guys. Maybe it wasn't that funny. The worst part about filming stuff is not having music playing because your shop feels like a mortuary. What's surprisingly funny is everything's lining up well on this seat, which is usually not the case. Usually you always run into something. Okay, take that little nipple off. Now we gotta do the top stitch. I like the brown on top of the black better than the black on the black. So let's do that. It'll look a little nicer. I don't like how this one's laying, so we're gonna have to, I like to make sure that these things try to lay flat, but kind of puckered up. So when we do the how to install this seat, I'm going to show you, we're going to actually trim some of the salvage off of here. Salvage, salvage. It's so funny. We had this, just because we had this crackhead working here at one point, and he kept calling it savage. He goes, that's the savage. Now I can't remember what's right. Okay, so we'll do that next. This gets to this. We're going to put this on here. This goes bada boom, bada boom. I forgot to cut the V's out, so we'll just do that while we're here. Bada boom, little V, little V, little V. This is my new rapper name, Little V. Is it gonna make it? Is it gonna make it? That looks a little short. Is that how it was? I think that's how it was. Yep, that's how it was. Do 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 do. I wonder if you get demonetized for singing songs that are copywritten. Probably, right? Okay, so let's test fit it again. Oh no, I gotta do this one. Gotta do this one here first. Let's do this first. So we know that this 3 marks goes there. So this is like point and case too. If you were to look at this thing, you would never think it goes this way. You would think it goes this way because it looks like a little mustache. So we want to make sure that the 3 marks on this side, center to center, bada boom. Let's get this on here. And then we could go test fit it. So we're going to stitch this on and then top. I tell you what, the only thing less lucrative than an upholstery business is a YouTube channel. Maybe if you combine them both, we could get a happy meal. Okay, so now here we go. Bada boom. We got this one made and this one made. So this sits here. This one goes inside here. If there's stuff that you guys want to know more about, just let me know and we'll explore that in other videos. I'm just trying to get through our day and give you as much information as we can. Same thing. What do you see? I got the cackle fest over there, so I gotta be careful what we say. So now we got this on right, this on right, this on right, right. Okay, so what's next here? This has to get sewn to this, and before we do that, we're actually going to sew. We got the big panel that comes around the back. This guy, right? We got to sew that on, which is here. You gotta see, got it backwards. Always looks the opposite. And then we have to put these guys on here. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna sew these on now. These side panels, the brown, which would be cool, have a little brown splash on the sides. And then we're on the home stretch. We are on the home stretch finally. I was just gonna go and sew all this stuff up and then come back, but I figured we're here to do some sewing. I just don't want the videos to be too long and bore everybody out of their minds. So we're gonna put the side panels on. I'll show you how to do that. And then I know a lot of people probably wonder how to put the front to the back, because I'm wondering how we're gonna put the front to the back on this one. So bada boom, let's cut the V's out. Got lazy, I forgot again. 1, 2, 3. That's why this table's all scratched up, because I've been doing this for years. All right, that goes there, that goes there. Let's sew these together. Line up our little alignment V's, hashes, whatever you want to call them. Okay, that's aligned up, that's aligned up. I sound like a Luigi. Get it underneath there, hold it down, hold the thread so it doesn't back up. Forward, backwards, lock it off. Make sure your alignment pins are, alignment marks are lined up, which they are, and let's just get going. One thing when you're doing big material and a small material is the big material sometimes, especially if it hangs off the table, wants to stretch, and that's gonna put you in a bad place. That's when you always pay attention to your alignment hashes, because if one stretches more than the other, you want to get that really quick and fix it. Otherwise, when you put your seat cover on, it's going to look like shit and not go on right. Bada boom. These ones line up good. We got our seam allowance to seam allowance, just like we want it. Snippity snip. Now we're going to put our top stitch on here, black on brown. Okay. We got a top stitch going on there. All right, so we're going to sew the back to the front and the front to the back right now. How do we do that? I don't know, because we got to have this touching that, but we need a giant hole in the middle so your headrest could go through it. Let's see. Looks like this is going to be it. I like to line up our. First off, you want to make sure your center to center is perfect. You want to make sure everything's centered. I got my center point there, my center point there. Center is always the most important thing you want to do. So we got our center. So we want to make sure this is centered, which this is, right? We want to make sure that our top stitches are aligned with our top stitches. And then we're going to do the same thing here. Okay, so we're just going to run right down the edge of this bad boy, right? And then we're going to come around to here. And then we're just going to come down to here a little bit. We don't go too far. Okay, now snippity snip, snippity snip. Let's take a look. I don't understand this at all. This is confusing me. This should not be like this. Somehow, somewhere, something went way wrong, and we're gonna have to deal with this. Just for the hell of it, sew this to this. This is not right, right? If this goes to here, and it's sewn to here, like so, it is right. Okay, so it is right. Just a little confusing. I think it's because of the multi-dimensional coloring that we got going on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this, and I got to change something on the other side that I realized I didn't like. Okay, so now that I'm around here, I want to make sure that everything is lined up perfectly right. So perfect. So top stitch to top stitch, butt seam to butt seam. And then, bada boom, we got to go right across here. And I can fix that side now. That looks good. See, bada boom, bada boom, bada boom, bada boom. So this has to go down here, and then that'll be exact. Exactamundo. I gotta fix this side because I messed up. Sometimes when you sew in a specific direction, then you come back in the other direction, it looks totally different. And that's what happened here. Hopefully. Let's take a look. We just don't want this good, we want it great. Let's make American motorcycle seats great again. Let's take a look here. So now we have our backrest slot. We have these lined up good. That looks really good. This goes over here. We want to make sure that from there to there is about the same, which they are the same. And let's test fit it, and then we can put this back panel on. Or do we go crazy and just put it on? Now let's test fit it. We got this here. That's going to pull down. This is what I don't like. I do not like this. Let's get it. Oh, gotta get it. That's what it is. That's why it puckers up like that, because this is supposed to be down in there. Around here, still not digging this, but we got to trim it yet. So everything's good. We're going to sew this on here, which is going to be the back thing, and then we're going to do the bottom. I don't know if I should show you the bottom or it's a waste of time. We'll do the bottom on another video just so I can get the seat done. It's not really that entertaining. Okay, so that concludes sewing the seat cover together. The next video is going to be us actually putting the seat cover on. I do have to put a badging on it and do a couple things, and I'm worried about this back section. So if you watch that next video, you'll see us get this on and see if it actually came out good. But I thank you for watching. Please remember, like, share, subscribe, follow, ring the bell. We appreciate when you do that. It helps us out so we can do more of these videos. And also, I wish I did have you see us see me sew the bottom on, because the sewing machine broke and parts went flying everywhere. And of course, that would have been funny.